So basically today, guys, I don't know what is going on with camera, but it's pretty weird light angle. Anyway, so I'm gonna talk about something which is pretty prevalent, some pretty prevalent misconceptions about Lilith and her current and her spirits, and this is basically a rant, but I'm going to be as polite as possible. So there is a really widespread misconception that Lilith can be worked only with Jews. And that's something mostly propagated by Jewish feminist witches. And I don't know how to describe people other than uneducated. Because in the Talmud and in other religious texts of the Jewish people, Lilith is actually associated with the Gentiles. And that is used as a derogatory term because there is a radical stream among the rabbis who believes that the Jews are the offspring of God, right? They are the people of God, and then the Goys or the Gentiles are the offspring of Lilith, and they are associated with Lilith. And Lilith is known as the mother of idolaters. If you look at the description of Christianity in Jewish scriptures in Talmud, uh, which is basically Christian civilization is for the Jews majority of the Western civilization. They consider Christianity a form of idolatry, and so there is a radical stream of rabbis which believe that Jesus was actually offspring of Lilith and Samael. Now that's a really radical point, but and not really widespread in the rabbinical community, especially not today. But you see where I am getting. Like, there are Jews today who think that the Lilith is the mother of idolaters and Gentiles. So Lilith is associated with non-Jews in the lore. She is associated with idolaters in the lore. And can those Jewish witches explain to me how entity associated with the Gentiles and idolaters is working only with people who are not Gentiles and idolaters? Like, make it like clear to me. Like, in order to be Jewish and claim that Lilith works only with the Jews, you show me that you didn't read any of the literature in the Jewish tradition associated with Lilith. Because according to the Jewish literature, you are not supposed to summon Lilith. Lilith is something you banish. She's not something you work with. There are few people who worked with Lilith and Agrat and Emma, but those are extremely well-trained rabbis who basically have a legal permission to do so by the Jewish law. It's basically looked really badly upon if somebody who is not of that social stratum tries to summon them. It's considered idolatry and it's considered kafish or black magic, it's really negatively looked upon. Now, there is a Jewish stance on Lilith and other spirits. And the Jewish stance is really more similar to Arabic one than to the Christian one. So, the Jewish stance is that all of non-angelic spirits fall under the category of Shadim. Now, translation of the word Shadim is like a little bit of a darker spirit, but still a spirit. It's a morally neutral term. So, you have Shadim who are celestial, you have Shadim who are nature-wise, and you have Shadim who are demonic. And they are all basically the same category. Now, Lilith is the mother of the majority of the Shadim in the Jewish lore, which makes her mother of all non-angelic spirits according to the Jewish tradition. Now, I am not saying that it's true, I am saying that it's a Jewish stance. So according to Judaism, all of the pagan gods are related to Lilith, and all of the nature spirits are related to Lilith, and all of the you get where I am coming from. So basically, and I really dedicated years to studying this topic because I wanted to study Lilith from the Jewish perspective. And there are like some really obscure Jewish texts which quote Ahriman as a son of Lilith. For example, so they consider all of the non-Jewish gods and all of the spirits who are non-angelic to be an offspring of Lilith. Samael and Lilith mating and Lilith and Adam mating is, according to Judaism, the origin of all spirits. But there are also certain spirits which kind of predate humanity, which are also kind of the same species. It's a little bit confusing, but you get me what I'm trying to say. So now, the reason why I went onto this entire exegesis, onto this entire commentary, is to point out that according to the Jewish tradition, Gentiles can work with any Jewish demon and have results. Actually, rabbis claim, that majority of the gods of other nations are basically the offspring of Lilith, and the Lilith originates them all. That's one of the Jewish stances. They consider all of the gods of other nations to be Shadim, and they consider Lilith to be the mother of the Shadim. And they also do not think that non-Jewish person cannot work with the Shadim. That is purely a modern New Age stance by Jewish feminist witches and other uneducated individuals who didn't bother to read anything on the subject. Now, there is also another misconception about Lilith. That Lilith is purely evil being, purely destructive. And that is wrong, because the Talmud states that Lilith is one of the Shadim, mother of the Shadim, to be more precise. Now in Judaism, Shadim are morally neutral. They can be good, they can be evil. So Lilith is extremely destructive. That is the fact of the matter, right? That she is extremely destructive being. But just like any Shadim, there is a morally neutral aspect to Lilith. And that morally neutral aspect will behave differently depending on how you treat her. So if you work with her with respect, she's going to work with you likewise. If you try to BS, she's going to BS you. If you come into her world not being interested what the protocols are and what you should do, it's going to end really badly. And I think that's the problem with the most of practitioners nowadays. People think that spirits are invisible people. Right? They apply the same logic they apply on people, spirits. It ends really badly because spirits have their own rules. And you need to go into their world and you need to learn those rules. Human rules don't apply to spirits, and spirits' rules don't necessarily apply to humans. But if you work with spirits, you have to understand what the rules are. And that's one of the most important parts of working with them. Also, another aspect of working with Lilith is that Lilith requires compensation in some form for everything she does. So, she's a wielder of the divine knowledge. She's immortal. She's ancient. That's true. But she still is a being made of energy, and she needs an energy to live. So, every time you ask her for something, she spends her energy to manifest your request. And if you are just asking them shit, and they spend, and you give them nothing, they are going to find ways to get that energy from somewhere. Uh, a lot of the time, when you piss them off in this manner, they actually don't tell you. They just start warping your life in weird ways. But that's basically your fault. Because you are expecting immortal etheric being who wields divine knowledge to work for free just because you exist. And that is extremely egotistical standpoint. So no, Lilith is not your babysitter. She requires compensation in the form of offerings, in the form of promotion, in the form of working with her and developing your spiritual bodies according to her image, in the form of having certain lifestyle. Those are all ways of compensating Lilith for teaching and working with you. And spending her energy and her essence to give you something or to teach you something you shouldn't know otherwise. And so that's actually the biggest misconception. And offerings in ritual or fulfilling the oaths you make in ritual are not aesthetical detail nor formula which you just repeat because somebody tells you. It is actually a necessity. Also, what you have to understand is that spirits basically they see us in two ways. So they love us, they care about us as students, but they also need an energy to do what we ask them. And we cannot ask them endlessly to do what we want without giving anything. So, what happens a lot of the time is people have those endless requests and they get them, but they start feeling depleted, they start feeling tired. That's because if you offer nothing to the spirit and you work with the spirit, the only possible energy source spirit can take from is you. Because spirit needs energy to survive. And so, when you ask spirit for something, make sure that you have provided the spirit with the necessary compensation energetically, emotionally, verbally, physically. It needs to be settled. Because if it isn't, the hell will break loose. Lilith doesn't have a tendency to lie. She is really honorable in a sense. She will be pretty clear in what she can and cannot do. But you need to understand that there is one thing we need to get out of the window. There is pretty big evidence that spirits are actually etheric, semi immortal beings, intelligent creatures, which have the powers and abilities we don't. Yet. And if you are subscribed to some psychological BS, you know, from the people who like subscribe to that psychological BS, there are like two possible outcomes. They either go insane because spirits fuck them, or they stop being psychological. Now, as soon as they start talking about, oh, spirits are part of the collective energetic field, and collective energetic field is energy, and so I work with them as a part of the field, they basically admit that it's not mental. Because if spirits are part of the collective energetic field, then they exist as energy, which means that they exist. They admit that it has some form of objective existence. And That's it. That's what I wanted to say in this video. But one last thing I would like to add to debunk this entire Lilith doesn't work with non-Jewish people nonsense. I laid pretty strong arguments for my position, but there is one last misconception I want to debunk. Right? And that's a misconception that Lilith doesn't work with men. Okay. Look at the lore. So in the lore, Lilith produces Shadim. She produces spirits. So with who she produces it with? She produces it with Samael. Okay, Samael is an angel, so basically he's androgynous. And she also produces them with Adam. Adam is a male. So the reason why spirits exist, according to Jewish tradition, outside of angels, is because Lilith was fucking a guy. So how she can create spirits with a guy if she doesn't want to have a contact with the guys? If the reason why her children exist in the first place is because she was into a guy after he got another concert. You get what I'm saying? Also, majority of the hardcore Lilith devotees I know, like the guys who summon Lilith like 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, and still have a lot of money and successful lives, are men. I have seen more hardcore Lilithian devotees being successful as men than as women. Now, there are multiple reasons why that is the case. I am not going to go into them. I think one of the reasons that is the case is because a lot of women going to work with Lilith with a really unhealthy attitude, that she is somehow some benevolent mother goddess without any destructive aspects. It's all Christian propaganda, or they go to her like some kind of a weird tool to punish people who traumatize them. So they basically see Lilith. That's another really interesting possession I see a lot of women have. They see Lilith as a stick to beat their ex-boyfriends with, and nothing more. So basically, they just see Lilith as a way to express their frustration on men. And I didn't see a lot of those relationships go far. In my career, I have seen a lot of women trying to do that. Because as soon as they see that it's not necessarily what Lilith is about, Lilith would, what would usually happen in those scenarios is Lilith would go and she would fucking punish those men. She would kick the fuck out of them, okay? Because she is spirit of destruction, spirit of storms, plagues, and sexuality. So she is obviously really good for cursing people. So she would do what she was asked to do. And then Lilith would return and she would say, hey, I am actually not just about cursing men you dislike. I have different things I am into. Dear woman, you should do this, and this. And then woman would like start wondering and they would start being confused and they would just stop working with Lilith after a while. Because they don't care what Lilith truly is, they just wanted to use her as a stick. And it doesn't go far, ever. But those are like two positions on Lilith I see among women who don't progress far in work with Lilith ever. And by the way, when I say don't progress far, if you summon spirit once a month to give it some wine, you will never get far. If you want to progress in work with some spirit, you have to call them weekly or daily. And you need to give up a lot of things. Now, when I say give up a lot of things, what I really mean is you need to have a really disciplined lifestyle. You know, people who do one or two rituals a day and their life is complete chaos, one or two short rituals, and they don't have money, they don't have partner, they don't have house, anything. It's just complete chaos. Uh, it's not because of spirits, it's because of them. Okay, so majority of those people who say my life is chaotic because I am on the left hand path, I mean, yes, left hand path spirits are chaotic. But if you are homeless, single, dirty, smelly, ugly, and unattractive, it's probably not spirits, my dear. It's you. I don't care which gender you are. Uh, so that is a really big misconception. I see a lot of people who basically just use spirits as an excuse for their failures. A left hand path doesn't imply that you should be miserable, broke, single. If you are miserable, broken, single, and you work with spirits, it has nothing to do with the nature of the spirits. It's your own shit, which you are not being accountable for. I have seen a lot of people blaming spirits, especially if we talk about end of their romantic relationships. Uh, when you hear that story, call it bullshit unless give an extreme amount of evidence. Okay? But usually, women who use Lilith as the stick are the same who claim that Lilith broke their relationships, which is like weird. If Lilith broke your relationship, why are you calling Lilith to punish your ex? How is that? You see, there is a lot of confusing nonsense here. But regarding the men who work with Lilith, there is also one really like common complaint, which is like I acquired such a transcendental knowledge from Lilith that I don't need women, or women don't want me because I am enlightened and majority of women are like grounded or something. That's bullshit, you know. The reason why women don't want you and you work with Lilith has nothing to do with Lilith. It's because you, motherfucker, don't want to change yourself and understand what women want. Like, if your girlfriend leaves you or whatever, it's your problem. You know, if my girlfriend leaves me, it's my problem. You know? So, yeah, I really needed to tackle all of those issues because people come to me with those same issues all the time. You know? And I gonna end this video with a quote. Okay. Lilith is destructive, but she is morally neutral. What happens is dependent on how you handle the situation. Lilith is immortal, technically, and Lilith is etheric. She is powerful, but she doesn't do you free shit. Okay? And working with Lilith is not a stick to punch your ex or a masturbation tool. Yeah, I forgot one other bullshit to tackle. That Lilith is somehow the goddess of sex, and you just have to have a lot of sex, especially masturbation, to appease Lilith. Men are like big on this nonsense. They just like, Lilith gives me such a good sex, and it's usually like a fat guy with like 300 pounds who jerks off on Lilith's sigil. I'm talking about you guys. Uh, that's like, look, working with Lilith involves sometimes and occasionally giving sexual offerings, regardless of what gender you are. But being addicted to masturbation and having a sex addiction is not something you should blame Lilith for. It's your own decision. And it actually makes you less capable of working with Lilith, because in order to perform Lilithian rites, you have to have a lot of spiritual energy, and masturbation releases that energy into the universe. So if you release too much, you will have small amounts to work with to call spirits you want to call, including Lilith. Because sexual energy is energy of your soul and the body in certain form. So, sex addiction and having STDs is gonna help you work with Lilith short term, but in a long term, it's gonna make you less capable of working with Lilith. Now, when you work with Lilith, your sex drive is increased. But it doesn't mean that you should act on it all the time. Lilith told me personally that, like, every time I offer her my sexual energy, she takes it. And it builds up the bond, right? It's a bonding. But if I do it too much, I will be depleted to the point that I will not be able to call her anymore. So she was like, it's good for me, but be careful. So you need to find a balance here regarding sexual energy release. And also regarding pornography. Before I was like anti-pornography if you work with Lilith, like, but now I don't care. Like, I asked Lilith multiple times about it. I didn't put my own opinion in it. She was like, I don't care. Do people watch it or not? I participate in that industry. I take the energy from people in the industry, but I don't care. Like, it's your own choice. Do you want to watch it? Like, if you want to watch it and enjoy it, watch it. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. You know, it's like, I. The thing is, like, Lilith is morally neutral, which means that a lot of the things we attribute to Lilith, she doesn't necessarily care about. You know, she is a spirit. She's not bound by human perceptional and political agendas. You know, she existed much longer before humanity as we know it even came to be, because Adam wasn't basically a human as we are today. Adam was a different form of human. He was like a more elevated. He was a more elevated, energetic form of man. Uh, he wasn't what we are today. So Lilith existed before humanity as we know it came to be. But what I can certainly say is that Lilith is behind forces which exhibit sexual liberation of man. But she also warns people. When I say men, I mean humanity in general. But she also warns people against extreme forms of sexual excess, because as much as it is feeding them as spirits of darkness, it also destroys the one who is performing those rites. So if you go too far, you will just burn out. Okay, so that is all I have to say for today. I covered a lot of topics here. And that's it, guys. Talk to you soon.